Hey guys, this is WigglieWolf, and I'm here to show you the new changes for the Mist of Pandaria warriors between arms and protection. I don't really know much about Berserker, but I can go over it if you guys feel like it. But right now, for this video, I'm just gonna go over protection and arms changes. So let's get started. Let's start off with protection first. As you can see here, you've gotten a couple spells that you couldn't normally use in protection stance, but now you can, like such as Deadly Calm and other things like Execute and Recklessness, etc., etc. Well, now you can. Apparently, they've made it so now you can, for all your combat stances and stuff, you can use any ability ever. Just depending on what stance you are in, kind of changes the effect of what things do. So, for example, Shield Slam, it says generates 15 rage in defense stance. Then I'm going to be under the assumption that it doesn't generate any rage if you try to do this in any other stance. But this makes tanking pretty interesting when it comes to, well, I believe it's going to make tanking pretty interesting when it comes to rage regeneration. I have a feeling you might be heroic striking more often, or using it for your other abilities, such as Shield Block. Well, here, Shield Block now costs 60 rage, but, however, for the next 6 seconds, you block every attack. And these blocks can be critical blocks. Well, while that's the same thing as, as regular, but now it actually costs rage, and has 2 charges with a 9-second recharge time, much like the monk roll, where it has a charge time. This is gonna make a pretty big difference in tanking. Like right now, all I have is a macro that constantly uses shield block off of cooldown whenever it comes off of cooldown. But now I'll probably actually have to pay attention to shield block when I play my warrior if I'm tanking at all, or to see how many charges and make sure not to spam it and stuff like that unless I really need to use it. Revenge here is just the same, except it actually generates rage, and successful dodges and parries actually reset the cooldown on it instead of having it be required to, instead of dodging and parrying to be able to use it. It looks like tanking warriors are actually going to be putting out a lot more damage in MOP than normal. Like, they already put out a kind of decent amount of damage, but now it looks like they're more focused on tanking while doing a lot of damage, and I think this is going to be interesting, seeing tanks actually, still being the lowest on the DPS charts, but actually, being able to DPS. Last Stand is increases your current and maximum health by 30%. So this means, I assume that it gives you the regular amount, yada yada yada. And also, I have a feeling it heals you, so this will be interesting. Commanding Shout, alright, so we have Commanding Shout here. Increases the stamina of all party members by 10% and generates 10 rage. I don't think that's any different. But here, here's a new one, Shield Barrier. You raise your shield, absorbing blah damage for the next 6 seconds. It consumes up to 60 rage to increase the amount absorbed. The absorption is increased by attack power. Apparently, warriors now get a shield that's on a 1.5 second cooldown. This is going to be really nice so for the healers. If especially Disc Priests, if they're shielding a lot, that warrior is going to have another shield that he can pop whenever he pleases, which is going to be really nice for reducing damage instead of having to rely on shield block and shield wall and yada 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 just to keep it up. Now, demoralizing shout hasn't changed. I think the only difference is it's got a minute cooldown now, which is interesting because you used to be able to just spam it and keep that reduced cooldown, but it looks like it's going to be a little bit harder to tank with that. It looks like, I don't know when you learn it, because, I just made this pre-made character. This isn't actually my character. My character's a lot better geared when it comes to tanking and stuff like that, but, looks like Devastate does the same thing, replaces Thunder Armor. It does damage, and it does a lot of, extra weapon damage, too. It does the same Thunder Armor stat effect. Berserker Rage now gives you extra damage done for 6 seconds, which is going to be pretty nice, especially when that it gives you rage. You don't have to talent into it, since the talents are all changed and different, and the passives are all kind of put into depending what spec you're in. As you can see here, we have just the regular other spells. You know, I do like the fact that tanks can now use execute when it's time, because you can use any ability in any stance now. So that'll be kind of nice when it's just a DPS race and you're really coming close to that berserk timer to wipe the raid and stuff like that. Heroic Leap doesn't look like it's changed at all. Heroic Strike hasn't changed at all. However, it looks like it's on a shorter cooldown now. I guess this is to make it more of a rage dump. Instead of having to wait the 3 seconds, you can just use it whenever, every 1.5 seconds, which, you know, you're probably gonna be. Oh, okay. You're probably gonna be rage dumping, you know, a lot more often than you used to in Cataclysm, which that kind of got really annoying for me, because you know, all the time on my Arms Warrior or my tank, I'd have all this excess rage and nothing to do with it. So but I have a feeling I'm not going to be having as much rage to rage dump with Heroic Strike, because you know, the new shield block and other stuff that uses rage now that didn't used to before. Intervene, you know, Intervene looks like the same thing, except for the whole reducing threat. But there's another talent that will be useful, and I'll get to that in a bit. Looks like Victory Rush.
I don't have a target.
Still is only usable after you kill an enemy, but you know, Victory Rush is Victory Rush. It's nice. It's nice to have if you're killing trash and you happen to get the killing blow out of all the DPS or somehow, which is probably going to be a lot easier to do with a new execute. Shield Wall is still the same. Spell Reflect is still the same. Taunting is still the same. And Thunderclap, which is Thunderclap has 9-second cooldown right now, and instead of reducing attack speed, reduces physical damage dealt. This is a pretty nice change to Thunderclap. I kind of like the attack speed slow, but the damage decrease can be a lot better for overall damage when it comes to both tanks. And when it comes to reducing damage and stuff to both tanks, I mean, I have a feeling that maybe Paladins get an attack speed slow, or maybe later I'll get an attack speed slow or something, but that's going to help reduce the damage and stuff. As you can see, we have the passives: Deep Wound, Mortal Strike, and Bloodthirst, and Devastate causes to bleed. That'll be good for the extra little bit of DPS that you need to get to that Enrage timer. We have Enrage, which Mortal Strike, Bloodthirst, and Colossal Smash. That doesn't really apply to me, but it increases physical damage, generates 10 rage, and increases physical damage done by 10%. Critical Block still the same. Parry still the same. Plate Specialization still the same. Increases stamina by 5%. Devastate has a 30% chance of resetting your cooldown on Shield Slam, and increasing the rage it generates by 5. That's a new thing. I like that. I'm not sure if it's new talent-wise, but it used to be a talent, but now it's just a passive that comes when you go into tank spec. Ultimatum, that's a new one. Your shield slam has a 30% chance to make your next heroic strike or cleave cost no rage. That is really nice to have, because I just love spamming the heck out of heroic strike and cleave whenever I'm tanking. Sometimes I just unconsciously do it. I know it's kind of bad for your rate. Hold on a second. If that was the case, I'd probably take Juggernaut, but I don't think I'm going to be needing that reduced cooldown. And there's also Warbringer, that your charge causes the target to get stunned to the ground for 3 seconds. I think that's more of a PvP skill, maybe PvE if you're just leveling, but I don't know what you're doing leveling in protection spec, unless you're an extreme masochist, or you just want to have that extra survivability by being so tanky. So we're gonna take double time. I'm not gonna go and tank an instance or whatever like that. I don't really have the time to, and I don't really feel like it because it's just a beta. If I get enough people wanting to it, I'll try to do it, but no guarantees. As you can see, we have Rage Regeneration here as a talent now. It will actually instantly heal you now for 10% of your health, and then an additional 10% over the next 5 seconds. And it costs no rage if you use while enraged, but it does cost 60 rage if you're not enraged. That is a great spell for either arms or tank, which is really nice. Which is really nice to have. But I think for a better thing for tank, maybe Second Wind. It says whenever you're below 35% health, you regenerate 3 health per second. Whenever you're stuck by a stun or immobilized, you generate 20 rage over 10 seconds. That is what Second Wind really needed to be useful in PvE. Second Wind's not really useful in PvE back in Cataclysm because all it does is give you these effects when you're stunned or snared or slowed, and you're not going to be really dealing with that much in the raiding environment, especially like in Dragon Soul or Firelands or whatever your raid and your guild is doing at the moment. Impending Victory, that'd be actually pretty nice too. To have for tanking, except for it's on a 30-second cooldown, which is the problem. It replaces Victory Rush. And, it lets you instantly attack for a certain amount of damage and healing you for 10% of your maximum health. Killing an enemy that yields experience or honor resets the cooldown of Impending Victory and causes your next Impending Victory to heal for 20% of your maximum health. I don't know if this still requires you to kill something for it to work, but if it doesn't, it'll be a decent Arms Warrior thing to keep you going and going and going. Like I said, I'd probably prefer the Second Wind for tanking just because you're going to be dropping down to 35% health a lot. Unless you have healers that are just going at it and just not letting you drop below like 50% health. It depends on really your group and how much damage you're actually going to take. We have 3 different shouts and stuff here. We have enemies around you become rooted for 5 seconds. Enemies around you are slowed for 50% for 15 seconds, or interrupts all spell casting within 10 yards and prevents spells in that school from being cast. I think for tanking, either Piercing Howl or Disrupting Shout would be the best because there's probably if it's like Cataclysm, there's probably gonna be a few fights where you need to slow a bunch of mobs on, or you need to stop spell casts or something. When your kick's on cooldown or your pummel or whatever you want to call it, you'd probably want Disrupting Shout for that instance if you know you're going to be interrupting a lot. Otherwise, I'd probably use Piercing Howl if you know you're going to be slowing things a lot. Because Staggering Shout, there's not very many things in a raid that's going to get snared. Here we have Bladestorm and Shockwave, the norm. And then we have a new one called Dragon's Roar that does a crap ton of fire damage, knocking enemies back and knocking them down for 3 seconds, and it's always a critical strike. That would be great for like an Arms or a Fury Warrior to get that AoE down, but I'd probably personally use Bladestorm for an Arms Warrior because that's just that's their ability. That's an Arms Warrior's ability, and it just does so much better AoE damage around you, whereas this is only in front of you, knocking things back and stunning them. This would probably be great for PvP. Maybe pretty decent for PvE, but I think I'd rather take the Bladestorm for PvE. Shockwave, is the norm, stunning all enemies. I will definitely be taking that for tank spec, unless there's just so much AoE that I don't need to really stun. I'll probably take Bladestorm, but chances are I'm most likely going to only use that for my TPS spec. Now, we have these talents. It's Mass Spell Reflect that pretty much puts Spell Reflect on everybody around you within 20 yards for 5 seconds. That will be a pretty good utility spell. We have Safeguard, which, God dang it. I picked a bad spot to hang out and talk to you guys about this. Anyway, Safeguard is, it's kind of like Intervene, but it replaces it and reduces the damage taken of your party member or whoever, and it removes your movement impairing effects by 20%. Well, it reduces the damage by 10% and just removes the impairing effects. Now, Vigilance is different. It actually, they made it from like being a rage generation thing, and like every time your target gets hit, it reduces the cooldown. It gets rid of the cooldown in your talent. It made it to have a cooldown, and now it transfers 30% of the damage taking to you from your target for 12 seconds, and taunt will have no cooldown during this for this duration. That's gonna be pretty neat. It's gonna be it kind of gives you a little bit of room for error when it comes to taunting, but it's not a good idea if you need to use it just for the taunting ability. It'll be great to save like a dying healer or DPS, or maybe your main tank or off tank is getting the crap beaten out of them. Well, this should help with that problem. Now we have 3 new ones. We have Avatar, which I think is an awesome DPS talent from what it looks like. It says you transform into an unstoppable colossus for 20 seconds, increasing your damage dealt by 20% and causing your attacks to generate an extra 30 rage. This would be really, really useful for DPS. It's one of those just like burn them down cooldowns. It's like when you pop heroism and blah blah blah, getting all that damage out. This would be a great thing to pop for like maybe an arms or a fury warrior, depending on what you are. Bloodbath for the next 12 seconds. Your melee special attacks deal an additional 30% damage as bleed. While bleeding, your target's moved at a 50% reduced speed. This would be a pretty decent PvE thing, and I think it's a pretty it's actually a really good PvP thing because you're gonna be putting all those bleeds and stuff on your target, and it's gonna be slowing them, and be a real pain in the ass for them to get away from you. This would probably be, like I said, it'd probably be used for PvE. Mostly, I think it's mostly for a PvP spell. And then we get to Stormbolt. This could be a PvP and PvE thing. It hurls your weapon at an enemy for 100 weapon damage and stuns the target for 3 seconds. However, if the target is immune to stun, it does an additional 300% weapon damage. That'll be really great for if you want to get a huge burst on a boss or something like that, and you just want to get that kind of DPS boost from that every 30 seconds. I think I would personally take this for boss fights just because it's on a 30-second cooldown and it does so much damage if you're using 200 weapons. Personally, yeah, I'm probably gonna if I do DPS somewhere, I'm probably gonna use this. I don't know. This may be good for Fury spec. I'm not sure. I don't really play Fury spec that much because I don't really like having the idea of relying on chance to do a maximum amount of DPS. I think I will have to split the arms part into a second video. I've been rambling on for a while now. So I will be back with a second video on Arms Warriors and giving you the skinny on that. So take care, subscribe and like if you want more of this kind of stuff. Tell your friends. I will catch you guys in the next video. WigglieWolf.